For us, the Giants of Exhibition is very much a way of giving ourselves a perspective on the scale of the industry in this particular territory. And it's always good to get an understanding of really just how ambitious some of these big corporate players are.
This is the Box Office Podcast. I'm Daniel Luria, the editorial director of Box Office Pro, the pulse of theatrical exhibition. And in this week's episode, we'll be covering two main topics here that are relevant for the month of June. The first guest we have on is my colleague Malcolm McMillan from the Box Office Company's Boost division, talking about our partnership with Unique, that is the European Trade Association representing European cinemas, going over our annual Giants of Exhibition ranking of the top 50 European circuits by screen and location count. That is the first guest that we have on this episode. And the second one, in the latter half of the episode, from HeyLED, we've got Kenny Chow, the co-founder and CTO at Time Weighing. He is going to be sharing the latest updates from HeyLED's LED cinema screen technology, new sizes, new innovations, everything you need to know to figure out if LED is right for you right now. All those advancements coming up in the second half of the episode. But to kick off the way we always do, we're going to be joined by my colleague, Chad Kenner, to talk about major topics here in the world of theatrical exhibition, including our forecast of June's titles coming to a theater near you. Chad, welcome back. A lot of movies that you've seen over the last couple of weeks. We're going to be talking about some of them today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to chat about the Phoenician Scheme and Ballerina and all the films I have yet to see in June.
Me too, Chad. A lot to talk about with the titles coming to hit our screens this month. Of course, we're going to need that recovery because last weekend, Karate Kid Legends really didn't open the way we thought it would. It wasn't a disaster by any means, a $21 million domestic debut for the title, but that was still below our expectations for this film. As you may remember listening to us, this was originally scheduled as a Christmas 2024 release. It got pushed to May, but that final weekend of May just ended up being a bad spot after a fantastic Memorial Day weekend full of films. Really just overshadowed the title, Chad. I'm beginning to think, would Karate Kid have been better served as a Q1 release? I mean, somewhere in February or March?
I think so. I don't think it's a reflection on the film based on the screening that I attended. I feel like I've had two screenings recently where there's been cheering during the film and clapping at the end. And, sometimes that happens. It's great, but it doesn't always happen. So I feel like this is a film, at least with the audience I saw, that had a wide demographic range, young kids all the way to grandparents. And it's a shame that it didn't find its footing. So I do feel like maybe it would have done better in that Q1 when we were really wanting something to catch on.
Hey, listen, even a $21 million debut would have looked a lot better in March and February than it does right now, in late May, early June. It's about context. It's about when you release something. We also say at the other side of the equation here that we need movies to follow big weekends because what can happen if a big movie doesn't perform and there's nothing following it. So I'm not going to be here Monday morning quarterbacking this conversation, trying to magically change the release date for a Karate Kid Legends. No, we have to applaud Sony for coming out on a weekend following a holiday frame with a fresh new title that had, I think, a good number of expectations to gross 100 million. I think by this point, 100 million is firmly out of reach for Karate Kid Legends. But it's not by any means, I think, a disaster. A disappointment, sure, I think, in relation to everything else. In my opinion, Chad, I think the Karate Kid franchise already cashed in its nostalgia ticket with Cobra Kai. The pilot episode of Cobra Kai that came out, 5-7 years ago, was all the reboot I needed to see out of this story. And the fact that I didn't stick it through all of the Cobra Kai episodes actually had me thinking, you know what, I'm better off staying at home and eventually catching up to Cobra Kai before I watch this. I think that was ultimately what I think directed some viewers away from opening weekend. It seemed more like a Cobra Kai sequel rather than a Karate Kid sequel at the end of the day.
Yeah. And that's a marketing challenge because it really doesn't have anything to do with Cobra Kai. And I think you can go into it without having seen that show at all and have an enjoyable experience. But yeah, it is a challenge coming right off of that show.
Now, moving forward, we have a number of new films hitting the market starting this weekend. We'll be going over our entire expectations for the June wide release slate. Let's start with an expansion here, Chad, of a film that we both saw recently, Wes Anderson's Phoenician Scheme, which had the highest per-screen average of the year so far after opening in 6 locations last weekend. Wide expansion from Focus Features coming on Friday. I enjoyed this one, not in my, let's say, top 3 or even top 5 Wes Anderson list, but even a Wes Anderson that's middle of the road is better than most things out there on any given year.
Yeah, it's a solid Wes Anderson. I've struggled. I know that you enjoyed The French Dispatch more than I did. I've struggled with his past several films, but for me, this felt like more of a return to form for Wes Anderson. There's a straightforward plot, and I love the father-daughter story that gives you a little bit more of an emotional hook, and it's really funny. And of course, it's a treat to look at. So
it's not as vignette driven as
yes,
French Dispatch. And what was the last one that just came out with UFOs? I forget.
Asteroid City.
Asteroid City, right?
Yeah.
That seemed a little bit too much, like I said, vignette driven, as opposed to just the traditional 3-act narrative like we have right now. Benicio del Toro, fantastic.
Yeah.
Performance by him. I do expect this title to perform decently well in the marketplace this coming weekend. We're currently forecasting for a wide expansion between $5 and $8 million for the Phoenician Scheme. So landing between 6 and 7 million, I think is really where we expect this to turn out. A solid performance, of course, considering that the top 2 spots in the box office are going to be dominated with the third frame of Lilo and Stitch, which is pacing right alongside Ballerina, the John Wick spinoff that's been in development for quite some time. It's finally hitting screens after a reshoot really reimagined what the film was proposing in terms of the John Wick of it all. Now, Ballerina is currently tracking to an opening weekend between 32 and 40 million at the domestic marketplace. Like we said, Lilo and Stitch right along there, neck and neck for the latest frame of that family title. I think it's going to come down to audiences embracing John Wick's spinoff and not a John Wick sequel when it comes to this film.
Yeah. Well, if my screening last night was any indication, we could see that. A few weeks back, I feel like you poked fun at me for wanting more plot in the Wick movies.
No one wants more plot in a John Wick movie, Chad.
Well,
I love you, but man, that is like the last. It's like people that read the adult section magazines for the articles. No one's asking for more essays or short stories in those men's interest magazines.
Well, they heard my voice because I wanted a little more plot, and they gave me a little more plot. This was the Wick movie for me. I mean, the stunt sequences are always top notch, but here the vengeance, rather than being a dog in a car, there's a little more personal stakes in the situation. And Ana de Armas, obviously she earned her stripes as a Bond girl, but she is a full-blown action star after this movie, I felt. And like we saw in the extended footage that they shared at CinemaCon, the stunt sequences are really well matched with some humor in there as well. And so for my money, Ballerina is the best of all the Wick movies.
That's high praise, Chad. I'm really looking forward to watching it. Probably have to wait until a midweek screening next week. We're in the middle of a print deadline right now. But it is definitely near the top of my list of films I need to catch. Moving forward to the June 13th weekend, we've got 2 titles. One from Universal, the live-action adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon, which is currently tracking to a big opening weekend, potentially $100 million opening weekend. We still have some updates to go over as we get closer into the release date of this title. But right now, we are expecting something around the $75 million range for that opening weekend of the live action How to Train Your Dragon. Like I said, the ceiling might be close to 100 million if it really overperforms. There seems to be a lot of interest for this movie over Father's Day weekend. I aged out of these movies, so not only have I not seen any of them, I don't know what they're about, other than I think a child finds a dragon and befriends it.
Yeah, I also am not the big market for this series. I saw the first one. I maybe saw the second and third one. I don't know. I kind of lose track. But I will say, after the premiere of the film at CinemaCon, we were hearing a lot of really great buzz in the hallways. And as we've been getting closer with some of the marketing materials that have been released, I'm much more excited to go see this. I have a screening coming up.
And counter-programming that title from A24 is Celine Song's follow-up film to Past Lives. It is Materialists, an ensemble piece with Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, and Pedro Pascal that has a big name director and some very interesting talent attached to it. Adult skewing film. Of course, this isn't going to break any box office records. It's not expected to. But I think for most of us who complain that it's only superheroes and spectacle over the summer, we've got Materialists over on June 13th to look forward to. Did you like Past Lives?
Yeah, I did. I really enjoyed it. My wife did too, and she's actually really excited for Materialists.
I think it's one of those movies, Past Lives, I mean, that puts a filmmaker and their vision on the map. To the point where the follow-up has this buzz around it. I think that's what we're seeing with Materialists right now, expecting an opening weekend between $5 to $8 million, which is a healthy opening weekend. I mean, we just mentioned that's around the same range where we expect this Phoenician scheme expansion to land. And the Philippou brothers Bring Her Back opened to around that range last weekend as well.
Yeah, and we also have a return from Pixar this month with Elio.
Elio right now we're expecting between $35 and $45 million on the 3-day debut on June 20th. But these Pixar movies have legs, especially if the word of mouth clicks. We just have to see a little bit more of it. From what we saw at CinemaCon, I can't say I was fully convinced, but at the same time, I'm not the target audience for this.
Yeah, same. I do want to see it. I think it looks cute. I'm getting kind of tired of the alien space creature movies, but it kind of has a buddy comedy feel with that slug that he finds.
I always love those ensemble characters that you throw in there in either Disney animation or Pixar movies. No one's better than Hey, though, from
That's
Moana.
right. Yeah.
That dumb chicken. I love that dumb chicken. Though Bing Bong, spoiler alert, made me cry when he died in Inside Out 1. Those are in my all-time greats of Disney animation and Pixar guest stars as we look at that list. Not at all like Elio, and they might not be aliens, but they are zombies. We've got 28 years later with director Danny Boyle, the original filmmaker behind 28 Days Later, a movie that came out almost, over 20 years ago now. I hate to say that out loud, but a highly, highly influential zombie movie. Danny Boyle's back. This movie has probably my favorite trailer of the year so far. A lot of buzz, I think, in the horror community. My big question here is how much of this is a social media echo chamber in terms of hype for this Sony zombie title? That's what my concern is. Right now, we are expecting an opening weekend between 30 and 40 million. I think that's a fair range for 28 years later. But really, I could see this being a little bit overvalued just by the onlineness of it all. And this landing somewhere in the high 20s. Or then again, we might just not be giving it enough credit. And after 20 years plus of influence, this could potentially also float above that $40 million mark. But our median right now is in that $30 million to $35 million range for 28 years later. One of the movies that I was most looking forward to seeing coming into 2025. I can't wait. I already have my pre-sale ticket.
Nice. Yeah. I think we can't count out a good horror movie in the summer. And we kind of saw with dormant franchises too, Final Destination Bloodlines earlier in May. So, I don't know. I think there's a lot of people of our age that are really looking forward to this one.
Absolutely. And then if you're not in the bag for that sort of horror, we have more of a campy, comical take on the genre on June 27th with the release of Megan 2.0 from Universal. the viral phenomenon of, when was it, 2023, I think the first one came out.
Yeah.
Coming back with a sequel. This one, from the trailer, looks a lot campier in tone.
Yeah.
They're marketing it more as a comedy than they are, I think, as a horror movie like they did the first one. I am a little bit cautious. I think a lot of folks in our forecasting panel are as well. We do have an opening weekend range of $25 to $35 million on this, probably pushing closer to that high 20s range as we record this podcast.
The first film was one of those lightning in a bottle, early beginning of the year moments, an unexpected hit. I don't know if we recreate that with 2.0.
Not in June.
Yeah.
I don't think you recreate that in June. I think it's the sort of lightning in a bottle moment that you mentioned, Chad, that you find in the first quarter. I think that was a nice spot for it. I mean, even something like September, I think, would have worked for that title.
Mm-hmm.
I think this close to July 4th weekend, if it doesn't perform very well on opening weekend, it might struggle to find those screens coming into July. A title that we're not expecting to have those headaches is F1 the Movie, the Apple Films release hitting theaters on June 27th. This movie's been in production for a while, shot simultaneously with actual Formula One races. This seems like the sort of premium format experience that I absolutely want to enjoy with a cold beverage on a hot day.
Yes.
This is another one of my highly, highly anticipated films of the year. Now, is an American audience going to turn out for a Formula One movie? Remains to be seen. I think the sport here in the US is more famous and more popular than it's ever been, but I'm not sure if that's going to translate to ticket sales. But I do think if Kaczynski can recreate some of that fighter jet drama and spectacle with Formula One cars, I think we're looking at a big hit for Apple.
Yeah, I agree. It's high on my list too.
And all those movies will be coming to a theater near you in the month of June. We'll be updating each and every one of those forecasts on the Wednesday before release of those titles. So don't forget to visit our website, boxofficepro.com. Now, coming up after the break is my conversation with the box office company's Malcolm McMillan, going over the Giants of Exhibition top 50 circuits in Europe ranking that we do every year. That is coming up after the message from our sponsor.
Brighter, deeper, sharper. Create unforgettable immersion in large format auditoriums. Deliver premium private viewing in boutique theaters. And leave audiences with an experience they'll want again and again. HeyLED's full lineup of DCI certified LED screens empowers cinemas to elevate both expansive and intimate spaces, enhancing contrast, color accuracy, and visual consistency. Turn your screens into a true competitive advantage. Discover HeyLED.
And we are back here on the Box Office Podcast with my friend and colleague, Malcolm McMillan from the Boost division of the Box Office Company. Malcolm, welcome back.
Hi there, Daniel. How are you?
Good, good. It's been an interesting May, to say the least, in terms of positive news. And I think that's going to continue well into the month of June. And as we talk about good news, we have to talk about European exhibition. We've seen great recovery in some of the major markets across the region. And it's trickling down here as we look at this list of the major circuits. We've got a number of multinational chains on our annual ranking, according to screen count here in the EMEA region. Malcolm, let's start with this list. We're going to be revealing the top 7 circuits on our top 50 ranking, and then some of the highlights that we've prepared. Who's topping the list here in 2025?
I suppose there's no surprises. Odeon Cinemas Group is top of the list again this year. Slightly down on screen count from last year, but they're still very much up there with 2,348 screens. Behind them, Cineworld is running at about 2,110 screens. And then View, just a little bit behind that, 1964. And then we move out of UK-based circuits, which, of course, they manage cinemas in lots of different countries. We get into France with Pathé Cinemas. They have 1,271 screens. And CGR come in at number 5. They've moved up a place from last year, and they come in with 710 screens. So
So
yeah,
that's
so
the
it's
top five here. We've got 3 UK-based circuits, of course, Odeon being part of AMC, but those European operations headquartered in the UK, Cineworld and View rounding out the top three, and then 2 French circuits with number 4 and number 5. Interesting in that French marketplace being so dynamic, so vibrant. They're also rising to be 2 top 5 European players among these major circuits.
Yeah, I mean, Pathé was no surprise, really. They were in the top 5 last year. I think seeing CGR coming in there was a nice addition. Pathé obviously operates in the Netherlands, Belgium, Switzerland, as well as France as well. So they're always a bigger player. CGR is just France. So in that sense, to be in one territory and still be in the top 5 is pretty impressive.
And that's, I think, when we talk about concentration in terms of screen count and the presence on this list, we know Odeon's very well diversified across all of Europe. Same thing for Cineworld, Pathé, as you mentioned, and View, obviously. So CGR's inclusion in this list coming in the top 5 as an exhibitor that's mostly concentrated in one market, I think is notable.
Yeah, I think that's true. We always look at this list with a pinch of salt. This is just about screen count. It doesn't reflect profitability or anything like that. But I think, for us, the Giants of Exhibition is very much a way of giving ourselves a perspective on the scale of the industry in this particular territory. And it's always good to get an understanding of really just how ambitious some of these big corporate players are. So when you see a single territory circuit like CGR muscling in with the big boys there, I think it's noteworthy.
Absolutely. And we can also include a couple other circuits we've got here in our top 7 reveal on today's episode. Who do we have at number 6?
Number 6, we have Cinepolis, also moved up one place as well. So they've moved in to the 6th position. They have about 30 odd cinemas screens less than CGR. They're also moving ahead, and they've added 10 screens to their position from last year as well. So, not everybody's added screens, but obviously there's been a bit of reorganization over the last year and a half. I think we're seeing the effects of that coming through. At number 7, we have Paribus Cineverse, otherwise known as CGV, who is it's based in Turkey. Again, they've taken a couple of steps back in the order this year. I think the market conditions in Turkey are pretty tough at the moment, so that may be reflected in those figures. But again, nothing catastrophic in terms of numbers.
And that's a Korean-owned circuit, CJCGV, that has a number of outposts internationally. Obviously, their big European presence is with a market leader in Turkey. Turkey, as you mentioned, Malcolm, going through maybe one of the most difficult recoveries from the pandemic at a global level, not even a European level. At a global level, I think Turkey's been, more affected by the market conditions than anyone else. Now, we'll be announcing the entire list in our upcoming CineEurope edition of the magazine that'll be available in mid-June. And we'll also be having a private reception with all of the honorees at this year's edition of CineEurope in Barcelona. It's a nice little event that we've already had, 3-4 years now that we've had running, Malcolm, out there in a nice terrace. Yeah. It's a reception we do along with Unique, who help us in the compilation and data of this list. So it'll be a good opportunity to meet your colleagues and give out really a nice pat in the back for some of the growth that we've seen over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, it's a celebration of scale in our market. And what we try and do is recognize not only the really big circuits, which, as we've seen in the last couple of years, haven't changed actually that much. So this year, it's very exciting to have a new entry in the top 5. But we also look at other giants that are coming into the top 50. We're welcoming 2 this year. One is Cinewest, which is the French circuit, which moves into position 44. And Arte Siete, I hope I said that correctly, that's a Spanish circuit, which moves into position 47. And I think probably notable just outside the top 50, actually there was a rising star, or maybe we call them a sleeping giant, Planeta Kino from Ukraine, coming in at about 51.
Oh, it's great to see a Ukrainian circuit there in the last couple of years, especially as that industry tries to overcome some of those obstacles in the region.
Well, quite right. And actually, they have another circuit, Multiplex, in position 28. So that's not too small at all. And they actually put on screens this year to 158. They added another 8 screens. Basically, if you want to get into the top 50, you need around 80 screens. That's around the threshold, I think, that people should be looking for. Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair number. Obviously, we want to see that threshold going up because that indicates growth in the market. The other award we like giving as well is the fastest moving giant, which we give to the circuit that has added more screens by percentage than any other circuit in the top 50. And this year, again, the French making a notable entry there. Cineworld, which increased its screen count by 18%, just over 18%. They were very, very closely followed by Grand Écran, which is another French cinema, which was 18.27. So they were just ahead on the screen count percentage there. So Cineworld, they came in with 158 screens, having previously had 129, and they reached position 28 along with the Ukrainian circuit that we just discussed. So, that's a really impressive performance, I think, especially in the market we've been in. And maybe, as we've been talking a lot of French here, and I know, we are owned by a French company, Daniel, it's interesting. I think they have had a very good year, and they slightly bucked the trend. Lots of good local content in the last year. Maybe this is a little reflection of that.
Yeah, I think anytime you have a domestic market overperforming in terms of the recovery, you get to see that investment trickle back into renovations, into new locations. It's always something very positive to see. And as we talk about that European marketplace, you mentioned that 80 screen threshold to be among the top 50. That's more or less what it is here in North America, Malcolm, as we're currently doing our data verification for our annual Giants of Exhibition North America. That's something that we're seeing. It's really around 80 screens plus to get into that fighting position, to get into the top 50. For all exhibitors out there listening to this, get ready for an email from us. Please get back to us because we will be reaching out to confirm your screen count in the coming days and weeks. Malcolm, this has been always a pleasure talking about these growing European circuits. For you, what's been the biggest highlight in the European trends here in the marketplace over the last year?
Well, I think probably the main highlight for me is probably the fact that actually the downward movers were relatively small. There were only about 10 circuits went down in the list, 22 circuits went up, and 17 stayed in the same place, which kind of makes me feel like the market or the industry is in rude health. I mean, I think we all know what the challenges are, but there are still people investing in the cinema experience, and I think that's being seen in the number of people moving, or the movement, I should say, in this list. As I said before, it's not about profit. It's not about turnover. This is purely based on screen count. It's an indicator. But we enjoy doing it every year, and it's great to see the operators when we do at this private reception, which will take place at CineEurope later on next month.
Well, thank you very much, Malcolm. We appreciate the time. That's Malcolm McMillan from the Box Office Company joining us to talk about the movers and shakers in our annual Giants of Exhibition Europe list. You can find the top ranking of the top 50 circuits in the region in the June edition of Box Office Pro magazine. And coming up next, we've got an interview with HeyLED's Kenny Chow to talk about the latest innovations in LED cinema screen technology. HeyLED will have a big presence at CineEurope 2025. In case you're attending, don't forget to stop by their booth. That is coming up after the break. And we are here with Kenny Chow. Kenny, thank you so much for joining us here on the Box Office Podcast. Well, let's talk a little bit about this technology because there have been so many advancements when we talk about LED. Let's start with the number of models that HeyLED has that have DCI certification. Could you share with us how many of them have that certification and what that means for your product lineup?
So far, we have 4 models certified with DCI. For the large one is 20 meter and the 16 meter 4K. And then we have a mid-size, which is 10 meter and 8 meter 2K. So with these sizes, we can actually cover different screen sizes for the cinemas. In the cinemas, they have auditoriums of different sizes. So they do need different products to fit their spaces. So we think that we can have a full range of product that can service different customers.
Now, there have been also a number of product upgrades from HeyLED this year alone. What should we look out for when we see this technology on the trade show floor at CineEurope?
We are extending a new series of product to the the VIP size. So we start with a 6 meter, and then it go all the way down to 5 meter and then 4 meter also. So with this new technology, on one hand, it serves the auditorium, which is a smaller size, and also with the premium format. Usually they call those VIP launch, right? And at the same time, it can also serve the private market, like home cinema with the DCI, that movies can be delivered to the home. And also on the technology side, is use a different packaging technology on the LED. For the very large screen, we use the so-called SMD LED packaging technology, right? With this small size, we are using the COB and the MIP packaging technology. So it gives a very high density and high resolution image to the audience.
Now, another feature that HeyLED has is this ability to have a 3D effect, a sort of floating image on this LED screen. Could you speak to us a little bit more about that? How is that different from a traditional 3D projection?
With the very high contrast ratio that, like compared to a projection, the screen is always white in color. So the special feature of a LED screen in the cinema is using this, we call it the black screen, replacing the white screen. So it can always give you a dark image when the scene is requiring the camera to show a lot more the darker details. In fact, the LED is much more capable in that sense. So naturally, the LED can offer a much higher contrast ratio, almost like 50 times to 100 times higher contrast ratio, is because it reflects much less light compared to the projection widescreen.
Now, talking about that contrast ratio, that reminds me of another new technology that we've heard a lot about is HDR, high dynamic range. Can you talk about how HeyLED handles high dynamic range in its LED screens?
Yeah, I think everybody knows that LED is capable of delivering very high brightness, right? Because people see a lot of outdoor LED, like advertising boards, those screens used in the sports stadium. Those are outdoor screens, and they can deliver up to like 5,000, 6,000 nits of brightness that can compete with the sunlight, right? The LED naturally can deliver high brightness. But in fact, when we put the LED screen in the cinema, we have to redesign the whole system compared to the traditional outdoor LED screen. We have to give it a much more grayscale details and also color accuracy so that it can reproduce the movie images according to the Hollywood directors, what they want the audience to see, right? So on one hand is naturally it can deliver a dark, and at the same time it can also deliver a very high brightness, give you the impact. But you can't just spoil the high brightness, right? So the whole system is actually coupled with a very precise grayscale controlling circuits and software so that it can deliver this new movie format called the HDR, high dynamic range film. And we actually see Hollywood is pushing this HDR new format very proactively. They have released the HDR formal specification in 2023 that now the display can be formally certified to be HDR capable. And on the other hand, it also defines a very good standard for the movie mastering. So when the film are mastered in the HDR format, then the LED cinema screen is capable of reproducing it exactly in the cinema.
That's one of those advantages that this technology can bring. And another aspect that we've seen really help this technology is the stability and consistency, something that's crucial for every cinema screen. What has HeyLED done to make sure that your screens meet those standards?
HeyLED was designed, it actually have a much higher quality level compared to the so-called commercial LED screen. Because we realize the importance of the product stability to the cinema operators, right? Our audience is paying for the ticket to watch the movie for like 2 hours. And so we must make sure the screen deliver a very stable and high quality image throughout the whole movie. We actually start from like material selection to the production process to all the structure designs and circuit designs that we make sure it delivers the best quality. And also, and on the other hand, the cinema operators are usually lined up with the landlord of the like the shopping mall. The operation of the cinema would be up to at least like 10 years, right? So we also can commit to the technical support throughout the lifetime of that cinema.
And those are important partnerships here in exhibition. You want to make sure that this technology is something that can last, that it's an investment that can last a number of years. Now, there are also other innovations that HeyLED is working on, including perforated and curved LED screens. Now, these are different type of experiences altogether, but can you tell us why these innovations are coming and what that impact is going to offer moviegoers?
For the very large screen, like similar to the IMAX screen, like more than 16 meter, we can deliver a screen up to 24 meter wide. In those large screen, the positioning of the sound source is very important. When people watch the movie, then they can kind of have a natural feeling about the conversation going on. We have the perforated screen. If we curve the LED screen, which is in fact more reflective to all the sounds in the auditorium, then it actually creates problems in passing some of the sounds to some of the audience, and people don't feel comfortable hearing the sound overall. So when the new structure that allow the screen to be made perforated, then it doesn't create this reflection problem. Okay? So combining the perforated surface, then we can actually make the screen also curve so that it looks more natural to the audience.
And these are going to be offering new ways to experience LED technologies in cinemas. The perforated screen, as you mentioned, having that ability to conduct audio from the center of the screen was one of the original design challenges when this technology came about, and that is now being addressed, including those visibilities and sightline concerns with the curved screens. Another part of how HeyLED is working to make sure that the technology is accessible for a number of cinema operators is by supporting both Dolby and GDC servers. Could you speak about your decision to design it in that way and how that helps cinema operators?
We find that different cinema operators' preference on the movie servers like either Dolby or GDC. So the whole chain, for example, is using the Dolby server. Then when we are installing one or two screens into some of their locations, then they find that the overall technical management is much more easier if the server that we can provide is in line with what they are already using, so that it works well with the overall the software system like their TMS, right? So vice versa, when the other cinema chain, if they are using more GDC servers in their own management system, then naturally we can also bundle it with the GDC server so they work better with their software management.
Now, there is going to be a new small-size product coming to CineEurope this year. Could you tell us a little bit about that new product? What is so special about this new, smaller type of LED experience?
We are delivering a new, smaller size product, also in 4K, to our customer now. And this product is designed in mind that for some region in the world, that they have smaller auditoriums, that they need a smaller size screen. So we are developing this 6 meter wide screen for those regions who require smaller space. And on the other hand, this will be the first formally HDR certified screen by DCI. As we know, we did mention about the HDR definition. It was released in 2023. However, all the certification tests was actually not ready until end of last year. This year, which is now 5, this is actually the first year that the DCI laboratory, they are capable of conducting certification tests using the new standard for HDR on they call it direct view display, which is basically LED. So this product that we are delivering and we will be showcasing in CineEurope is the one of the very first screen that is formally certified with full HDR direct view capability. So this product, we think that it will make some impact in the market, and hopefully our customer will like that.
Well, I'm sure it'll be great to have this sort of technology available to more exhibitors, to more auditoriums. You're coming in with new innovations, with new products to CineEurope. What is going to be your main focus at the event this year?
Our focus will be promoting this full line of product. Now, we not only have the large screen, which is from the 20 meter large size. We also now have the small size that can roll down to like 6 meter, 5 meter, and 4 meter. So we'll be focusing on promoting the whole line of product to fit different users' need. On the other hand, showcase the perforated technology. Although this time we cannot show the whole screen because of the size limit, but we will have some form that we can present to the customer so that we can get more feedback from users or these exhibitors in what sort of scenario they would like this sound perforated screen.
Now, looking ahead, what do you see as HeyLED's biggest strengths in the global marketplace? Because there's a lot of competition, and you want to make sure that your innovations are staying ahead of everything else that's coming around the corner.
So besides the hardware, we also put a lot of effort on the system management software. So currently, we are also upgrading our software to a new version that can enable the exhibitor to manage the system and also making the maintenance of the system much more easier, such as it has like monitoring features on the power supplies or the critical parts of this system so that it improves the reliability. So we have been working closely with the server software like the Dolby and the GDC server, as well as different TMS softwares. So this will be one of the area that we think that we can keep bringing better value to the exhibitors.
And a big thank you to HeyLED's Kenny Chow, Box Office Company's Malcolm McMillan, and my colleague Chad Kennerk for joining us here this week on the Box Office Podcast. We'll be back with a new episode featuring a full preview of CineEurope 2025 next week. So don't forget to subscribe, and we'll talk to you again real soon.